welcome to the Brazilian BA Guest. We are here every week with different guests talking about business analysis and something related to it. If you're not yet subscribed in this channel, please do so right now. Click on the bell so you can be advised every time there is a new video here for you. Today, my guest is Heather Mylan-Mains. Mylan-Mains, sorry.
Very close.
Close. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to have this conversation with you.
I have a good question for you today, Heather. My question is, how does business analysis support change?
I love that question, Fabricio, because as a business analysis professional, a person who practices business analysis, there is nothing that I am involved with that doesn't require a change. It could be a change in process. It could be a change in software system. It could be a change in who I report to because of a organizational change. It could be a field on a screen that I'm used to seeing a certain way. It could be a different report. We could go through thousands of examples of what business analysis results are. And it always involves change. And change is easier for some people than others. And often we neglect to think about the humans involved in the change, especially when we're working on a team. As business analysis professionals, we might be working with people, and we have a long time to understand the change, to validate the change, to make selections for the change. But then the people that are the results, and I often joke with my name in my work, well, Heather the human needs to do this work. Maybe we should think about how she is going to react, how she's going to do it. So change is so important to me, and I don't think we do it well. As people, as organizations, I think that there's opportunities to improve, just like communication, right?
Right.
Have you ever been involved in anything in your work that didn't involve some kind of a change?
I see that some professionals, and sometimes I could be on that role, are more worried about the operations, about just doing what should be done and finding consistency, finding compliance. And so that's not about change. It's about going to do the things that you're supposed to do your tasks. I should say that even sometimes I can see some business analysts, professionals, business analysts, just doing their tasks, and they're not really focusing on change. So this understanding that the organization is changing, that we should be supporting changing, should be available for anyone who is working in a business, because businesses are always changing. The environment or the context is always changing, and we must adapt.
We absolutely do. And we talked another time about the word nimble and how organizations and people should be nimble and evolving, right? My goodness, every single organization during COVID, they were forced into some changes. People working remotely, getting technology to support that. Those were substantial changes for organizations. And we're seeing how difficult it is to transition back to what a pre-COVID state would look like. So business analysis is such a great partnership for change. And making sure that you use some of the tools and techniques talked about in the BABOK can be very, very helpful as you look at change as a concept. And I always talk about teams that, we'll say software development teams. You have traditional roles, a project manager, you have a developer, you might have an architect, a business analysis person, a tester, an actual business person or operations person. All those roles have what I call viewpoints. So we all have a different lens that we bring to the project and to the initiative. And I think a business analysis professional has a responsibility to be cognizant of the change. And the change is not just in the task and the compliance of the task, but it's how does a person feel? I don't know about you, Fabrizio. Do you like it when things change?
uh, if they change for better, why not? Right? If you're saying, "Oh, Fabrizio, you just won the lottery this week," it's a big change, and I would not claim, right? But if you're saying, "Oh, we have a new job for you, something you don't know how to do," I would probably be kind of afraid. Oh, that's something new. I have to learn. Will I be able to do in this new way? So change may cause some stress.
Absolutely. I think I always say I think change is always a good idea when it's my idea. or when I have been, or I can see it. And so the people that we support and help often are not at the beginning of a change, right? So business analysis needs to focus a lot on understanding your stakeholders, understanding the people, understanding, how long have they worked in this job? How long have they been using this system? What is their role in using the system? Are they a person who's been a trainer or a manager or someone who's led a department? And if you take into consideration all of that concept and work in your stakeholder analysis work, not only to understand the process, which we should be doing as business analysis professionals as well, but then asking yourself, how do I help someone not be afraid? How can I make sure that rather than them being a saboteur or not being willing to embrace my change, how do I make sure that they become an advocate? How do I help them understand? And for me, the best way to do that is to create an education journey. So part of that, and another piece of information from the BABOK is, what's the problem we're trying to solve? When people start to understand that, in fact, this change isn't just because someone wanted to have a different system, but it's because that there's a problem that my organization is having or I'm having, and the solution is this change. Helping them to understand that is really part of the business analysis professional's job. And I think we don't get trained in that. I don't think we talk about it enough. I don't think we think about it because in our minds, it just makes sense. We can see it. We understand it. So why can't everyone else?
I wonder if you could give us 3 different examples of these being aware of change and what are the options for that change, or we have a problem, as you mentioned, we have a problem that we have to solve, and this requires some change. But it, as you also mentioned, may be seen from different perspectives in an organization. There's this perspective of the team that's delivering a new solution or developing a software or something like that. There's the perspective of someone who is dealing with the initiative where this team is working on. Sometimes there are multiple teams, but there's someone who have a business objective or goal to reach. And there is this strategic level of the organization where we have the executive team, the CE something teams, the C-level team, where they're also dealing with changes. And could you give us some example of how business analysis could support change in those 3 different levels?
I can. I have some really great examples from my past work life. So the very first one's going to date me a bit, Fabrizio, because I was working in an organization and it was a large organization, and at the executive level, I am sure there were some sales conversations about multifunctional printing devices. There was a time in organizations when you actually did not have a copier that could also be send a digital copy and do other things. It literally just made a copy of a piece of paper. So at this point, someone had shared with the organization, hey, let's get all these new devices across your entire organization. And I'm sure that the dollars and cents made a lot of sense. We'll get you, these machines. It'll cost you this much per per print across the whole organization. And I'm sure it was very shiny and very nice and very, very neat. However, in that situation, I do not think anyone had asked anyone that actually made the copies what they needed. So the problem they were trying to solve probably had to do with a high-level budget. They wanted to save so much money on their contracts for these devices. They wanted to enable people to do more and to send digital copies, et cetera, et cetera. All good things. When it came time to implement this particular change with this material and these machines, the area that I was working in had a very specific requirement to print documentation to go to an investment committee where they were making decisions on investments, multiple millions of dollars of investments. So very, very sensitive time-wise and very important to the success of the company. But no one bothered to ask the people responsible for creating the printing of these pages what they needed and how they needed it. So these machines get installed. And in fact, they didn't meet the needs. So I was asked to come in as a business analysis professional to create a business case to justify getting different machinery to meet the needs. So that is a great example of where we're going to do this change. And up here, all the things make sense. And there was nothing wrong with that decision. It was a great decision. However, they didn't consider the impact way down here. And so the time comes and it's just, surprise, here's some new equipment to use. And then a person can't do their job for whatever reason. You know, I actually don't even remember the details. It's been quite a long time ago. But it was an interesting reflection as I think about that for change. How I've told that story before, and I've had people that have worked for printing, IBM, Xerox, other companies, have said that's really not an uncommon problem. So that's an example where business analysis could have helped that be more successful to alleviate, one, getting the right solution and not having to go and do rework and get different equipment and possibly different contracts, et cetera, but just bothering to ask the person the human who actually spends their day creating documents and documentation, that person was not consulted in that endeavor, which is interesting to me. Mm-hmm. So it leads me as a professional now to always make sure I can speak to a person who actually does the work. Right. Also not uncommon in organizations. You get your project team and it's a bunch of people who are leaders or managers, and they may have at some point in their career done the entry-level operations work. But as we know, that changes all the time too.
Sure.
So then your knowledge becomes stale. So we always have to speak to the human that's doing the work. So that's one example.
Great
example. Important. Yeah, it is.
No, great example, and it shows how important it is to align the different levels of requirements. There are some requirements in the top of getting a return on investment and upgrading the operations, but it is not aligned. It was not aligned with the requirements on the operational level. So we must align those. Great example. Heather, I know that you are doing a lot of work in consultancy. You are helping people to do business analysis. You are helping organizations to explore the opportunities they have inside their structure to do business analysis. How can people reach you? How can people find you and have more information?
The best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. So Heather Mylan-Mains on LinkedIn, and you can certainly, you know what would be great, Fabricio? If you are listening to this and you have subscribed and you want to connect with me, mention, hey, I saw this conversation and I would be interested in learning more or connecting. That would be the best way to make the connection for me.
And I will leave the link for your LinkedIn just below this video. So it's easier for people. Just click on it and find it.
Yes.
Heather,
so much fun to be had. Yes, thank you so much, Fabricio. My favorite talk. Business analysis professionals are my favorite people. We just are
Me too.
amazing.
Mine too. Right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.